How hard did you push it till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, MuniciPals? This is Ashton, and not Big C. This is the other Chris in my life. I call him Hussey, normal Chris, medium-sized Chris. But Chris is joining me today to talk about some of our recent rounds. Chris, how's it going, man?
Good, Mr. Moss. How are you?
Good. I've been seeing a lot of you these days. I have a gigantic Big Chris size hole in my life, and I've just filled it up with a slightly taller, slightly slender version of Big Chris, who doesn't say pristine quite as much.
I try to expand that vocabulary a little bit, but it's been great playing with you. I don't know what three rounds in a row with you. It's been great.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna get out to Sharp Park here this weekend. So a lot of golf together, and I'm certainly not mad about it. But yeah, we're here to talk about. We played two courses together. One, you could call it tournament prep, or you can also call it, us sort of coasting out of a Thursday on the little early end at Metropolitan Golf Links in Oakland, and then also Wente Vineyards out in Livermore. One again was like I think Metropolitan, we played 14 holes, so I know Chris has played there before, so we only got in 14. And Wente, we were air quotes competing, which will certainly be kind of part of the story, because at least for me, even though it was a 2-man best ball tournament, it's the first time I've put a peg in the ground where it sort of mattered in quite a while. So we'll talk about both. But Chris, I'd love to kind of, you were on episode 5 talking about our wonderful Southern California golf trip. If you could just give the people a little context into, again, how your golf game is, what are you working on? I think that bringing you to life as, a human, if you want to talk about yourself in another way, but also as a golfer is really helpful so people can kind of visualize, your game a little bit as you talk about these courses.
Yeah, totally. Thanks again for having me on. I mean, it has, it's been great to watch you guys grow as a podcast, and always great to be your guys' friends. State of my game, it's been pretty good recently. I'm technically right now I think a 7.6 and trending downward, which I went through a swing change over winter break, and finally upgraded my 15-year-old set. Got a new driver, new irons. 3-4 days ago, just got a new driving iron, and about to put in a new 3-wood in the bag. So, getting used to new clubs with a swing change. I was not playing well. I was, up in the 80s, sometimes 90s. But now, occasionally, breaking 80 and enjoying every bit of it. But, it's funny. Golf is that one sport where you stop playing for 2 weeks, which I did, and you feel like you've lost it all. And to get better at all, you have to, play nonstop for 2 weeks. So you lose it really quickly, and it's really hard to get better at it. So I'm there right now where I'm just trying not to lose any of it and just keep building on this, progression.
Yeah, well, the big thing for you is to give people an idea. Hussey is what my dad called, I think, a BSMF, a ball striking motherfucker. Like when Hussey stop it over there. Like, I mean, he's the kind of guy who swings and everyone kind of goes, whoa. But I'm also good enough friends to say you've putted like shit the whole time I've ever met you. But that's the big thing. You switched to left hand low, and you've been putting a lot better, man.
Yeah, left hand low. I played in the NCGA Public Links Championship, and I just realized my putting was just god awful, and Ashton has rightfully pointed out multiple times that I'm stabbing at the ball. Jack too, producer Jack, has said I stab at the ball and I have no flow, no tempo when I'm putting, which is ironic because my swing usually has some pretty good tempo. So I decided to go left hand low, get a little Jordan Spieth action with the little press forward, and I'm putting a lot better than I think putt in my life. Like I'm actually excited to, putt anything inside 10 feet because I think it's going to go in. I'm just lucky.
That's huge.
I guess. Yeah. So there's some confidence.
That's also, I want the listeners to also know we now have both Chris's on record calling themselves Jordan Spieth. So just gonna put that out there.
100% okay with that.
Yeah. Although yours is a better flex because yours is his putting. Chris is like other Chris is like, scrambling his ass off, which is cool. But, you're just like, just pouring in 10 footers, it sounds like.
Sounds like, but not always happening.
Sounds like. But also for some context for listeners, I think one thing that we've talked a lot about that I think has been helpful for us, and this is turning into like a coaching podcast, but we both, Maverick McNeely on the No Laying Up podcast talked about strikes. And he talks about how he tries to have one or less in a round. So for him, he says strikes are penalty strokes, 2 chips, which he considers missing the green from 50 yards and in, and 3 putts. And I think the reason I bring that up, Hussey, and relative to your putting, is when we played at Spanos, you shot, I think, 78?
77.
77 with, I think, 5 or 6 3-putts. So I don't actually know about your 2 chips and your penalty strokes, but based off of that, I mean, if you had just, we've talked about strokes gained, like it's not necessarily perfect, but if you had just 2-putted, you could have not easily, but you theoretically could have been in the ballpark of par or under par. So it's just cool to kind of see you putt more confidently because I've watched you hit 2 great shots and then kind of get up there and just go, what was that? So I think the way you put it is trending down is a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, thanks. And exactly what you were saying. It was after that round at Spanos and then the 2 rounds at the NCGA Public Links, I just realized that it was putting that was really bringing me down. And, the other thing that you just touched on, something that you and I are both trying to do is commit. I mean, that word commitment is huge, especially when you're playing golf. And I growing up as in high school and even middle school, just trying to play golf and just getting angry at things not going well. I would lose my temper and just stop playing the game, because I wasn't having fun. But, I think a combination of A, finding a good group of friends, and then B, having that mindset of just, hey, commit to the shot. If it doesn't go, if it doesn't do exactly what you wanted it to do, that's okay. As long as you committed to it, because you're not going to be able to swing perfect every single time. So I think we have to thank your dad for that. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Because, I remember to me, even though Rams Hill left us a little bit lacking, that was the day for us. I think we both broke 80. Because what we were doing is basically like we get up over it. Because it all started, we're like, I was like, just asking, I was like, what are you doing? And you're like, yeah, I'm going to hit a 9-iron. It was just like so, and I was like, wait, what? Yeah. Like, wait, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're standing over the ball, and it's like, you can't actually tell me what you're doing. And so it was a lot of like, I'm going to hit a 9-iron. These are the reasons why, and I'm going to do it. I'm committed to it. And we're not being results oriented. And I think that's, to your point, mentally helped a lot because there's been a lot of times that I'll just go, you know what? Like, I'm over the green or something's happened, or even on Sunday at Wente, there was a putt where I missed it, and you said, "Were you committed?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I thought that was the line." Yeah. And it's cool, man. Like, I think it was like a 4-foot birdie putt that looked like it was going to break 3 cups, and it turns out it didn't. But everything would have made you think so, and you can't get mad at those, and you just get up there and pick your line because you're certainly not going to make it by guessing or doing anything else for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I want to say that one of the nice parts about being friends with Hussey that he was mentioning his new long iron is you get these wonderful texts, and then we'll move on to kind of the courses. But I was asking him about his long iron, and I got a text that said, "Dude, fucking wild. I'm hitting this thing like a long iron and just not connecting. It's like mega fade, snap hook, 50 yards. I'm like, WTF. I'm already thinking of how to post this thing on Golf WRX or GolfWorks. I don't know how you actually pronounce it. Put it back in the bag, pull out the hybrid, and I'm striping it. Fuck. Pull the driving iron out again. I'm like, why don't I hit this thing like a 3-wood and sweep it nice and easy? Boom, striped. Striped and long and high. Oh shit. Again, straight and long. It must have looked like a crazy person. Well, I am. Smiling like hell and surprised as shit. It's joining the bag and will join us tomorrow. Wow. but I have no clue how far this thing goes, ... So those are the kinds of things. I was on a hike on Saturday, and Liz was like, what? And I was like, well, it's like we're in a fucking therapy session here, but that's also, again, I've joked with Chris, this podcast is basically our golf sicko public, therapy session, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an emotional roller coaster, and sometimes you just gotta write a little novella about what just happened. So I appreciate you being my my listening ear.
There you go. So Chris, take me to Metropolitan Golf Links. Where is it? Give me kind of the Reader's Digest as we dive in.
Yeah, if anyone has ever flown into Oakland International Airport, there are 2 courses that you'll see right outside as you're landing or taking off. There's Monarch Bay, and then there's Metropolitan Golf Links. So it's in this weird area, tucked next to Oakland Airport, San Leandro's sewage waste treatment area, and just like a horrible industrial park. But it's one of the coolest golf courses that I've ever been to. And I think it's because it's kind of like our only real true links style golf course in the Bay Area. Now I know there's some other ones that I think I just haven't played, but to me, when it comes to value, when it comes to scenery, because I love airplanes like a lot, I don't think anything can really beat it. And this was the second time that I had played there. First time, it was windy, it was cold, it was a little wet, and I just did not have a good time. I actually kind of did not like the course and thought it was really difficult. But when we played, it was gentle breeze coming out of the northwest, and it was warm out, t-shirt, shorts the whole time. And, I think I was on track to shoot my lowest round ever. And yeah, I don't know. It's a course that with the wind, it's incredibly difficult, and without the wind, it's actually not too bad, which maybe is the definition of a links course, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. No, with this, obviously this pod is about Carica, but you feel like it's more kind of authentically links or, links adjacent than even Carica?
I mean, that's a good question. I think Carica, in my mind, I've always been told that it's this Australian sandbelt style links course, which, if you ask me what the difference between a sandbelt style links course and a regular Scottish links course, I really couldn't tell you, other than maybe the bunkers are not as potty. Would I prefer to play Carica over Metro? Now that's a tough question, because I really enjoyed my time out there at Metro.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, as we kind of dive into value, Carica, well, one thing to kind of update people on, this is not about Carica Park, but I know, Hussey, you played out there, you said conditions are kind of tough right now, so the other thing that ties into it is value. Carica, when I played it, I think with you last fall, was wonderful and not expensive, but not cheap. I think it was in the $80-ish range, but felt super worth it because just excellent conditioning. Metro is definitely in better shape than Carica is now, is in worse shape than Carica was then, but is much, much, much more affordable. Does that make sense? Yeah. I know I just sort of did a weird side by side.
That 100% makes sense. The greens at Carica right now, currently, I played there I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, are not as good as they were last year this time. And it's most likely because of A, perhaps the drought in California, and B, that they're focusing.
There's literally no water for people who don't know.
Yeah, and B, that they're focusing all their efforts on the North Course, which the front nine, my understanding, is opening up this month in August. So pretty exciting. But Metro, for what it's worth, literally, the greens, the grounds, the tee boxes were all in pretty good shape. I really have no complaints other than the greens just being a little slow, despite on their website saying that they try to make it always firm and fast year round.
Yeah. Well, the weirdest part was the course was actually pretty wet that day. Like, I know that on number 2, I went to hit my wedge in and had like I just chunked it because it was just like, it was sopping wet underneath the ground. But yeah, so let's dive into rate. I mean, I know that we, Hussey, I think we played at 508 on Thursday and it was $22, which, I mean, I know we didn't finish, but I cannot say anything about a $22 rate. That's excellent.
I think we could have finished too if some people ahead of us were a little quicker. And
Yeah.
like $22, yeah. You really, I'm trying to think if there's any other place that I've played where the twilight rate is cheaper than 22. I think Blue Rock Springs in Vallejo might be 17, but I mean, there's no chance that Blue Rock stands up to Metro. I mean, it's just a much better course in Metro. So yeah,
and if we had gotten in earlier, because I think Twilight starts even a little earlier. I think like you can go out there if you try to get the first tee time at Twilight and almost certainly finish.
And do you want to tell everyone what we actually paid?
Yeah, well, we actually paid 11 each. Because big shout out to NorCal Golf guys. They give us when we join. She's going to be a lot about NorCal Golf guys because we played with them at Wente, but they have a buy one get one, and so we ended up paying $11. I think we got a small bucket of balls to warm up, so I think it was $14 a piece out the door for a small bucket of balls to warm up and 14 holes on a course that, like, forget the price. We like, agnostic of price, we thoroughly enjoyed the course, but it definitely made it a bit sweeter to pay $14. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you recall, but some of the tee boxes were closed. Some of the blue boxes that we were playing from, they moved up, a couple tee boxes. But I think that maybe happened on 2 or maybe 3 or 4 holes. So other than that, I mean, yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So we talked about conditions. So greens, good, true, a little bit slow, but I mean, again, it's a public golf course, and so I mean that's going to be their default setting, right?
Yeah. Well, after our round, I went on the Metro website and emailed a Mr. Gary Ingram, the director of agronomy at Metro, and simply asked him, or let him know that we had a great time out there and that we were just wondering if perhaps the greens could be sped up, and I haven't heard back, unfortunately. But when I do get a response, I will definitely let you and the MuniciPals know, because that was the one knock. Because all links courses should be fast, especially on the greens. But
yeah, no. What we'll do is when you get a response from the greenskeeper, we'll throw that up on the Instagram so people can see. But
the greenskeeper, the director of agronomy, very different.
That's true. That's quite the.
Yes.
Man, we need to have him on.
And do you know what CGCS means? CGCS. I don't know. That's like his. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look this up at some point.
CGCS. Do you think he knows what it is?
No, I think it's definitely like a lawyer will put. I don't know.
No, I know. I'm just being a dick.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not catching on to this.
Chris Hussey, MBA, PhD, doctor.
Yes. Definitely not me.
Okay, onwards.
Yes.
So conditions. So greens good, could have been faster. Fairways were good for the most part. Again, to be mindful, I don't know where this water was coming from, but there were some kind of wet spots you had to navigate around. A couple tee boxes, as you said, that were closed. But overall, again, for the conditions, for the price, very good. Hussey, you've been here longer than me. One thing we like to talk about is condition for the area. So I'm not trying to say like Oakland golf necessarily, but I feel like you've got a good read on kind of golf in the East Bay, kind of golf, or like you're close enough in Walnut Creek to kind of know. Do you feel like obviously that value stands up either way, or do you feel like Metro is a very good relative to the area, or do you feel like actually that area that greens fees tend to be a little bit cheaper anyways?
Well, I think you have to take it in, like you're saying, the context of the area. But I think for one way to look at it is the Cal golf team, that is their home course. That is where they practice. And I don't know if they're doing that simply because they got a good rate or because it's a very difficult course. But I would think they wouldn't practice on a course that was in very bad condition. Now, maybe they are the type of incredibly smart school, which go Bears, that they are. They want to play on a course that's slightly harder in the sense that, it's like people who play at Lincoln are actually really, really good golfers because they know how to play from a bunch of different lies. Shout out to Juan. It's like you can hit it off any type of lie in a divot, dead spots, no problem. And I wonder if that's part of the idea. So I wouldn't say it's the best conditioned golf course in the area for value. There are other places, I think out here in Walnut Creek, my home course is Boundary Oak. I think it's in slightly better condition and it's faster, but it's also 100 degrees out here during most of the day. So, I don't know if I've played enough to really be able to comment on it too much, but I'm definitely going to go back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of listeners are probably yelling at their phones right now, going like, "Dude, it's $22 a Twilight. Like, it doesn't matter. Like at that price, like."
Yeah, totally.
Like it's $22, and I don't think anybody, regardless of anything, is gonna yell about that. And the other thing is, you mentioned too, Hussey, which to really impress on people. You mentioned the planes. I mean, you legitimately have planes feeling like they're going to land on top of your head, which to your point is cool. A lot of smaller planes, I don't know if they're private, I'm not sure, but like there's some, big commercial planes, but some smaller ones too that are right there. Also, it feels like you're getting a view of San Francisco, so the city, most of the time. Like you can kind of see the city and you kind of see the fog rolling in. And ironically for me, living in the city, I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt most day in Oakland, and I was like, man, I am going to cross the bridge and freeze my ass off when I'm walking my clubs in. And sure enough, that's what happened. So I think that, of course, the course is super cool, but to have the context of the plains and the city, pound for pound, just such kind of a one of the coolest settings I think there is to play golf, unless you're the person who's like, why is there an airfield there? It's like, well, some of the, best golf courses are quirky in that way. So, Chris, tell me a little about the layout. We've talked a lot about, yes, it is link style. I think people know what that means. But what did you kind of notice on the routing or layout of Metro?
It's for the most part, it's fairly, green to tee. Distance is short. There are a few holes, though. I'm thinking off the top of my head, hole number 6, which is long par 5 after a par 3. You have to cross over another hole's tee box. You have to cross over hole 2 to get to the 6th tee box. And then going from 6 to 7, which is 7 is another par 3. Technically, if you were following the law, you are not allowed to enter an environmentally sensitive area, i.e. a hazard with a green tip on the top. Do people follow the law all the time? I don't know. Who's to say?
So who's to say?
It's definitely who's to say.
say.
Yes. Did we walk through the ESA?
No comment.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Who's to say? We can neither confirm nor deny.
I think we will neither confirm nor deny. We could. We're not going to.
We're not going to confirm nor deny. Other than that, I mean, the walk from 9 to 10 is long, but what course does have a short walk from 9 to 10? Other than that, I think it's a great layout. It's difficult, but it's wide open. I mean, it's a link style course, so you can bomb driver and you can usually find it. There are some native grasses that have, been introduced or were planted there on purpose that can kind of grab your ball and hide it. And there is some hazard, there are some forced carries, but for the most part, it's fairly, if, I was 1 over after 14 holes, like, I think that means it's somewhat of an easier course. Like, I don't think I'm doing that at a much harder course. So, yeah.
That's very, very modest of you. You're also golfing your ball that day, but
Thank you.
I hear you. I think those kind of courses. I was just talking to this will come out in the future, but I was talking to our buddy Nick down in San Diego, and he was comparing two courses. Balboa, where basically you have to use my favorite term that I think Tron used, drive it up a gnat's ass. Which is a really weird way of saying you have to like hit it straight. And then there's a course called Admiral Baker that he loves where you can kind of hit it anywhere. And I think a thing that we should talk more about is playability, right? I mean, there's definitely times, I guess, for those kind of super tight layouts. I mean, that's really not how I like to play golf. Also, selfishly, I hit it a long way and my dispersion patterns can be pretty far. So it's like definitely advantageous for me. But I think to your point, I think it's a course that you can go get. And I think it's a course where you can kind of hit it, not anywhere, but I think that, if you're driving it within kind of your dispersion patterns and you're a good enough golfer, you can definitely go get it. With that in mind, Chris, I mean, I know you've played there before. I know we played 14 holes. Do you have a favorite hole, or did kind of a specific hole really stand out to you?
I'm going to... caught me a little off guard with this. I'm gonna have to think about it for a second.
Okay, I'll dive in and say mine while you chew.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna go 10, despite the fact that I blew it in the water. So 10 is a long, pretty demanding par 5. I had a good drive there, and then it's kind of a classic risk reward because there's a pond with a lot of kind of like reeds, and I mentioned the reeds because you can't really see the green. You can see some of the green. It's not a very comfortable shot. I mean, I hit a really good drive, and I think I had 240 to clear the green, and probably shouldn't have gone for it, but like I knew we weren't going to finish. It's like, whatever, I had a 3-wood right in the middle of the water. But a really interesting green, kind of sloping, kind of a big ridge in the middle. I know Chris hit his ball on the other side of the ridge, had kind of a great 2-putt, almost made the first putt. But I really love those holes, which it's like, hey, you can definitely make birdie a couple different ways, and you can do it. But I mean, for you to get on that green in 2 is going to demand 2 excellent shots, but then give you a gigantic safety net, right? I mean, you can hit a good drive or a bad drive. Drive doesn't really matter. Your next shot, you can hit a 7-iron and a wedge, and but then again, there's the water and kind of the way the hole is built. If you kind of go over there, like for me as a lefty, if I go over there and kind of give up on a wedge, not commit to it, I'm gonna hit my fucking wedge in the water too. So I think it's definitely a hole where you're happy to walk off with 5, or you can do it the way I did it, where I hit driver, 3-wood in the water, and then got up and down and made like a 20-footer down the hill. But I really like those holes because also too, with the reeds and the sunset and the water, it's also just like a really scenic hole, but not scenic where it's like, here's a fucking man-made pond in the middle of a retirement community. Yeah. It's a very kind of the water felt like it was supposed to be there. And again, like you walk off with 5 and feel good, but really kind of demanded a couple good shots to get on the green and make a good score. Yeah. So 10 really stood out to me.
Yeah, it's a nice, it's a nice double dogleg in a way. Like that's how it's routed. It's right and then it's left with the water, and you can cut all of those corners, but it's a very long way. Now imagine that hole, but the wind, you're just playing dead into the wind. I mean, that wind completely changes that hole, and that's what I'd noticed in this round was this course is so much easier when there's no wind, which is why, like I said, that's probably why Cal plays there, because you really have to learn how to hit a variety of shots depending on what the wind is doing that day. And my favorite hole, though, I think it's going to have to be 8, which is that very narrow par 4. It's kind of boring, but I fade the ball naturally, and it doesn't really set up well for that. And I think it just challenges you to really think strategically off the tee. Like what's nice about that hole is it's wide open in the front of the green, so you could just run up a long iron, just just hit a long iron off the tee and then hit another long iron onto the green, and you can definitely make par. But if you hit driver or 3-wood, which our buddy Dash Unfortunately. And Dash, I've never seen you play that bad. Don't worry, man. It's over. Like, you're going to be just fine. He was like, he blew it right into the hazard, or he found it and hit a tree.
It was like behind a tree and then chunked it, and it was short. It was,
I felt bad
it was
taking
a
his money.
bit of a bloodbath hole.
Yeah, but...
well, dude, when you shoot one over par, you're allowed to take people's money.
Yeah, and, we all signed up prior. It wasn't like a, hey, first hole, we're doing skins. But I think number 8, I think is a really good test, because you can, if you just go up there and grab your driver without thinking about it, you can really lose some strokes.
Yeah, and I know in that hole, I hit my my 2 hybrid that I'll call my 3 wood. I hit it about 260, and it was all the way in the rough. I mean, very honestly, you probably want to hit it more like 245 to be safe. So to your point, like, I mean, I would go so far to say is, unless you hit the perfect shot shape, or for me a cut, for you a draw with driver, let's just say that, like, there's no reason to hit driver.
Yeah,
I mean, I hit 3 wood gap wedge. Yeah, like, there's no reason
you could
to do that.
6 iron. You could hit 6 iron, and be just fine. But
yeah, and the other thing to note too that I did like a lot was not blind tee shots, but just like the way holes were designed around trees definitely just made you feel a bit fidgety. Like on that one, the tree on the left like really isn't in play, but it makes you feel like you need to go further right, which brings kind of the hazard into play. And then number 9 is the same, where, I was trying to get your read on start line, and you actually said, you're like, dude, over that tree is so much room. But like, I could tell my body wanted to hit it right on 9, even though, like, allegedly there was room over the tree. So I think Metro does a good job where, again, it's link style. There's not a lot of trees, but it's thoughtful trees, which is what we hope for. It's like trees which are going to make you feel, even if there's not there, even if it's okay. It's trees which kind of make you feel something, or kind of make you second guess, or make your body react. And that's just good golf architecture, I think.
Speaking of golf architecture, so it's a Johnny Miller, Fred Bliss design. Apparently there was a golf course on that property prior to them actually, quote, designing it. My understanding is they just took the old golf course, packed like tons of sand on top, and then just did the whole course, renovated the whole thing.
It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. I was always under the impression that Johnny Miller design courses are just there to like make you want to die. If anyone has played the bridges in San Ramon, you know what I mean. I played there once. I played kind of well. I lost money to Dash. That's when Dash was playing really well.
Again, it's a therapy session.
Yes, thank you. But I think he simply took, the wind and was like, this course is always in the wind, so it doesn't need to be that hard naturally. I don't know. I think overall, I really like the course. I'm definitely going to go play there again. $22, Twilight. Can't beat it. Traffic, getting there with traffic was a little tough for me, but I'll get over it.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing to highlight is pace of play. To your point, early on was a bit tough, which I'm not really going to blame the people ahead of us, because I've said this a bunch. I think one of the things that's challenging, it's really on the pro shop, is to establish more of like a natural flow of the golf course, because they let out a single right in front of us, which I'm all about it, but like that single was like, we caught up to the single on the second tee box, and we're waiting on the second tee box. I think eventually he went ahead, but it's kind of like, I just think that that's more on the pro shop, but it wasn't that bad. And then of course on the back 9, it turned out to be great, because we were, I think, the only people who were going to try to sneak in more holes, and we kind of blew through the back 9. So, I think we can have a follow-up conversation at some point once you go back out there, talk about the last 4 holes, if there's anything notable. Also talk more about kind of what it's like on the weekend. But yeah, and then I think the last thing to call, we don't really talk about this normally, but I personally think a really cool logo. Their logo is like, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but like it's almost like a cityscape in Friends font to me. Like it's a little cartoony.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit like 90s to me, or I think 90s, 2000s, I don't know. But I kind of like it.
There's,
I kind of been looking at it and I was like, I wouldn't mind that in a beanie. Like the name Metropolitan, like it's almost like a course that you play on like Tiger Woods, right? It's like Metropolitan with like a Friends cityscape. It's like, what? And then you go out there and it's like, well, this is like a real golf course.
Yeah, it's the Oakland cityscape, and then it kind of has like this Art Deco kind of Gotham City like font. It's cool. I never even thought about that until you mentioned it.
But then the funny thing is, you just pointed out it's Oakland, but in my mind, I was thinking it was SF simply because you can see the SF skyline the entire time.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's in Oakland, so there's kind of a weird juxtaposition there. But I always love, it's tough on our I was about to say pocketbooks, but we're not in 1930 anymore.
Pocketbooks.
But it's tough when you see something. You go to a course and it's like like when we went to Bandon, it's like you walk in and you see all the Sheep Ranch stuff, and it's like, must only buy one item. Like you see something and you're like, okay, like I need that on something that I own. And I kind of regretted not buying a Metropolitan beanie, and I saw they were $19. So like, again, great, love that.
Let's go
like,
back.
It's not gonna
we're definitely gonna go back. And speaking of the pro shop and swag for sale, their amenities. It was the weirdest thing. Ash and I are literally waiting in line to pay, and there's like a golf bag next to us in the pro shop. 2 golf bags, actually. And there's maybe a dozen brand new Scotty Cameron putters, like 3 different styles of putters, all Scotty Cameron, unwrapped, and just sitting there. Normally you go to like a Golf Mart or a Golf Galaxy or one of those big golf stores. Those putters are like locked up. You can't touch them unless you ask someone. They're just sitting there. And we were joking, like, do you think we could just take one? Like, can we just rent it? Can we just play with it?
Yeah. It was very strange that they were unwrapped. Because, I mean, I was also worried about like, them clinking together and like, getting dinged. But we should give a shout out to the nice gentleman who, one, gave us the update that Russell Westbrook is going to the Lakers. Who, I mean... I'm a fake Hawks fan, so I couldn't care less. But I will say the one homie move is on the NorCal Golf Guys thing. It said they had to include a cart fee. He didn't do that. Yeah. So big shout out to the guy in the pro shop for, I think he called you so for context, his name is Christopher Hussey. They called us the Hussey foursome. But hey, he didn't charge us for the cart fee, so shout out to that guy.
I'll get over it.
Yeah. So Chris, speaking of a cart fee, let's talk about Wente Vineyards. I've been thinking about this since we left, and like this is a therapy session. Like, give me the thesis statement, set the stage for Wente Vineyards.
Wente Vineyards. It is in Livermore, California, which is about an hour, southeast of San Francisco. It's in the Livermore Valley wine area, wine country, if you will. If I'm not gonna say anything that will get...
Do it.
Okay.
Do it. Hussey does wine for a living. And I just said does wine. That probably offends you.
I do wine. I'm based in the Napa area, so Livermore makes wine. And then
beautiful.
They have a golf course that is designed by Greg Norman. They basically had this giant piece of property where you probably shouldn't put a golf course, but giant piece of property, rolling hills, large cliffs. It's really nice drive getting there, and you show up and it's basically like a very nice resort course with very nice golf carts, with 2 coolers full of ice, free water, and a GPS system that Ashton will tell you about.
Well, I was going to say I don't know about. I mean, I guess nice golf carts, but the GPS systems were really bad. So let's see, just the stuff that I can remember. 4 to 5 times throughout the day. It made this really loud noise out of the blue, telling us that our carts had to be in at 8 p.m. And to be clear, we teed off at 10:10. So I don't know in what world that would have been a problem. It showed us this helpful guide on how to fix pitch marks, which I want to give a shout out for, reminding people, but the thing just kept dinging and making stuff. It also told us we were behind pace when we weren't. I don't know. I mean, normally those things are really cool and helpful. And I will say, I mean, it was helpful to have the distances, because going into this, we should make a couple stipulations.
Yep.
We were playing in a competitive event with NorCal Golf Guys. Shout out to Travis and Odie. I mean, just two wonderful guys. We kind of knew of them, had never met them, but they kind of put on all these tournaments all over Northern California, Seattle, and Portland. Just two super nice guys who clearly love golf.
Absolute gentlemen, and looking forward to playing with them in the future. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, just wonderful. So we were playing this event. I think there's two things that I've been thinking about that made it tough to assess on this day. One, we both played really bad. And I think that Knowing Up has said before, it's tough to kind of give a course review and you just don't have it. And neither one of us really had it. So that's one. The other thing, too, is we call a scummy. We both play with slope on our yardage finders like everybody else. And man, if there is a course where you want slope adjustment, it's this one. And so not having the right distances, plus it being warm, plus it being windy, for me, being a little bit nervous playing in a competitive event, also playing with the two guys who are like two of the co-founders of this entire group, it was just kind of this perfect storm. I don't know if that's why I played bad. Also, maybe I suck. But I think that's important context, because I don't want to light this place on fire. I think those are all important things. But I definitely have some opinions that I kind of want to unpack with you. There's some people who played in the event too, where I was like, hey, am I crazy? And I think they feel similarly. But I think those are some important caveats going in, because this wasn't me and Hussey drinking beers, hitting shots. Like, there was some caveats that are very abnormal for how we usually play golf. Is that fair, Hussey?
100%. I mean, it was definitely getting on the first tee, just being like, okay, this is kind of a tournament. Like, first of all, we went in thinking we were going to do really well, which, granted, we did do pretty well. I think we left a lot of things out there, a lot of just stupid mistakes, but I think what it came down to was really not knowing the course and not having a feel for the greens, which we could talk about in a second. But yeah, there was just something off, and I'll say it's because it's a team event too. You and I have never played together competitively, so to speak. We've never had a best ball type of thing. When you're trying to figure out what the slope is, I'll hit a 7-iron and be like, no, this is much more slope. It's further downhill than that, and there goes your one ball. So it's like, it was difficult when you don't really know the course.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So let's dive in and kind of go down our usual rundown. So first of all is rate. At least for me, I think this is where we kind of get off the rails really early here. Wente if you pull up on a Saturday at 10 a.m., you're paying $170 at Wente, which is, we talk about value for the area or anything. I mean, $170 is a lot of money, period, regardless of anywhere.
Yep, I just pulled it up. $169.
Yeah. Is that including it? I don't know. Is that a cart? Is that including the cart? I think it has to. Because we should also say, like, we're both like mega walkers. You cannot walk this course. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an option.
There's literally from hole 9 to hole 10, you go up a cliff on a street that they've named Lombard Street. For those Bay Area locals who know, Lombard Street is the zigzag street in San Francisco that you go down. This one you go up, and it's even more dramatic than the actual Lombard Street. So, yeah, you don't really want to walk this course.
No. I don't know. It's one of those where I actually don't know if they'll let you. It's like I told you the story when we played the Judge in Alabama and we walked in to play 9 holes on our first day there. We're like, hey, like, what's the walking rate? The lady goes, I have no idea. I got to go ask the manager. If they don't know the walking rate and they work there, like, you should probably not do it. And sure enough, we like shouldn't have done that. So yeah, so $169. Again, gotta make the caveat. Huge shout out again to NorCal Golf guys. We paid $119.
Yep.
So it's one of the reasons we wanted to play is we wanted to play there for a little bit less. So we did not pay that full freight price. I know there's different pricing at Twilight, but just to know if you're going to go there on a Saturday and say I want to play Wente, you're looking at $169. So I mean that's all we got to say for value. It's not a value.
Ashton, Twilight on a weekend there is $99. I mean, it's the one reason why I had not played that course. I was thinking about, okay, maybe I can go out on a Wednesday at Twilight, and I looked it up. It was $89. I'm like, that's just it's just not worth it. So having this
and that's probably their cheapest offering, right?
Is,
like weekday Twilight. So it's between $89 and $169.
Yeah, I mean maybe when they punch greens, they lower the rates a little bit more, but.
I would hope so.
Yeah, that was the biggest reason why I signed up for this. Also, I thought Ashton and I could win it, but we'll live to fight another day.
Yeah, to be clear, he didn't want to hang out with me. He wanted that was not in the calculus, but yeah, that's all good. So conditions. I don't know exactly how to talk about this because we got to give people more context. So the vineyards are OB, which is unbelievably penal. Like Chardonnay, we've talked about in the past. We've done a whole review on Chardonnay. The vineyards are red stakes, which, it's like, oh, it's still penal. It's like, yeah, but dropping where the ball goes into the vineyard is a lot different from re-teeing. So I think that's one part.
Or two-stroke, into the fairway. Rule E5.
Yeah. And then there was the dirt areas past the rough. They didn't want you hitting off of for being worried about starting a fire. So you would actually get to drop in the fairway. So, I mean, there's just a lot of weird caveats where, like, how was the fairway? How was the rough? Like, fine. Like, I thought the conditions were good there. But it's these caveats of, like, you're going to be hitting it in the rough and dropping it, or hitting it in a dirt spot and dropping it, or hitting it in the vineyard and going and getting it and then re-teeing. So it's not like a normal golf course in that perspective. And I'm not going to lie, I thought the greens were fine. They weren't $170 greens to me. I mean, I played again, I made the caveat that I didn't pay that price, but I went down to Bayonet, and Bayonet is a $170 course if you just roll up. Bayonet's greens are so much better than Wente's by a mile. So, I mean, I don't know. There's really nothing about the conditions that stood out to me. I mean, when you stand at the top of the hill, when you drive up the switchbacks and get the view of everything, you get some incredible pictures.
Yeah.
The green against the brown against the vineyards looks incredible. But I wouldn't say there's anything about the conditions where it's like, dude, it's super pure, right, Chris? It's just kind of a very normal condition golf course.
It's very green for the area. When they're charging that money, they're obviously using a lot of water, and they are. I think the rough was actually quite lush and quite rough-like. It actually held balls that should have rolled even further into a canyon, for example, in my case. I think conditions-wise, they have some really good aspects to that course. Tee boxes were great, except like one or two random tee boxes were just absolute dog shit. I think I can't remember exactly which one it was, but greens were I'll say the same thing you said, fine. A little inconsistent, maybe we're just not that good and can't read greens properly, but they just felt like some holes they were rolling really fast and other holes they weren't. There was damage on some parts of the greens that should not have had a pin placement, where there's burnt out areas on the green that you're having to putt through. maybe we're just cheapskates. I don't know.
No, I mean, the way that I think about it, and we'll dive more into the specifics here, but I through talking about it with my dad, I think I just have realized that we're not the right, there is a market for Wente. We are just not the golfers to appreciate Wente.
Yep.
It's like Chris has talked about in the past. There's some people, I've never met these people, but there's some people who won't, Chris has told me this. Granted, Chris also tells me, that he worked at a hot dog stand, so I don't know. But he said that there's people who won't play golf unless they can ride, right? I've never met those people. That's not me. In fact, I get pissed when my only gripe with Presidio, right, is on the weekend they make me pay for a cart fee that I don't want. Yeah. I'm the opposite of that. Yeah. If you're someone who wants to get in a luxury golf cart and pull into a place that looks like a country club when you pull in, where there is a pull off for it literally says limousines and buses to go have a wine tasting, and have a beautiful back porch area and take some pictures that all your friends are going to go, holy shit, where is that?
And never touch your golf bag.
It's great.
Right? They got bag boys everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a resort / kind of country club. I think that Wente, I'd go ahead and say it, that is, I'm not saying it's a bad golf course. I'm just saying, for me, we'll make a weird analogy. I like seafood. I don't really like steak, right? If you take me to the nicest steakhouse in the world, I'm going to go, yeah, cool, bone and ribeye, it's fine. It's just not what I want to eat. I'll eat it. You made me the only steak I've had recently is you've made me a great steak recently. But I think, does that make sense, Chris? I think that I think that someone who wants to be taken care of, who wants to take some great pictures, and who isn't going to be the person who's going to fucking email the director of agronomy afterwards, I think they'd be really, really happy here. I just think that we're not their target consumer. You know what I mean?
100%. I mean, we definitely are not their target consumer. And there is a segment of the golf world that is going to love that course. A lot. They just really like going there and being treated really well, which totally fine. After our round, sitting with Odie and Travis, we're talking about the course, and there's just something about, Odie said it, I'll give him credit. He said there's something weird when you're playing golf and you're riding in a cart. The flow is just all off. You don't get into this rhythm when you're that helps you play golf really well. If you're just rushing to the next ball, rushing, helping someone else find their ball, but you're driving around, there's just no way that you get into the groove of playing golf. You're just trying to get through the holes really fast. There's just something off, and I don't know how to explain it, obviously, but I think he's right. There's a flow to walking that makes golf much more enjoyable, and I think actually makes you play better.
Yeah, no, that's something that Nick talks about all the time, because he talks a lot about, first of all, I know we're in the same boat here. There's just something about walking. I find it to be it's I'm decompressing, I feel that I can relax in a way that, to your point, when I'm just flying along a fairway to my next shot, it's I get to my ball and you're telling me distance and I'm I'm not really ready to hit this yet. I just hit my tee shot. But that's not us. I mean, there's plenty of people out there who y'all are crazy. I want to have cold drinks. I want to load up my cart with beers. I don't want to have to schlep this thing around. And oh yeah, I want some incredible views, and that is Wente down to a tee. And I think that we've talked about the last couple of parts. I think that amenities are excellent. They made a mean margarita. The back porch is a great way to watch people come up 18. Amenities couldn't say just fantastic. We'll just leave it there. Pace, we're not actually going to talk about pace because we were playing in a tournament and we were the last group, and so it's irrelevant. I don't want to say anything about pace to Wente because we were in a tournament, and it doesn't matter. If we ever go back out there, we'll be happy to comment on it, but I don't want to say anything because it would be unfair to Wente. Sure. But I think in our last couple minutes here, Chris, we should talk a little bit more about layout and give people more of a perspective, because Nick was just talking about in San Diego playing canyon golf. I don't know if this is canyon golf, but it's like a bunch of like elevated tee shots, and again, that's why not having slope. Like I remember one hole in the back nine, number 11, a par 3, I hit a ball and you go, great shot, and I was like, I'm holding my breath. This could be short. It could be in the middle of the green. It could be way long. I think there was actually another par 3 where I just fucking roped a hybrid, and I hit it like 45 yards too far. Yeah. And I didn't know what the distance was. So I think we should give people a good sense of the layout before we sign off as well.
Yeah, I mean it's unusual. It's unlike any course I think I've ever played, because you meander through some oak, woodlands, and the second hole there's trees in your way that you have to either hit over or hit around. There's a lot of nice bunkering, but then you're then faced with another hole where you have this, as Travis pointed out, you're hitting your tee shot onto a tabletop in order to then hit onto a smaller tabletop that's like 50 yards uphill. And for us, like playing in a tournament without knowing slope, we're just guessing at this point. And I remember you, Ashton, you hit your 8-iron, and you're like, I think that's good. And I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to hit it too. And I hit it, and I'm like, I hope it's good too. We just did not know, because it's just very quirky. That's such a bad word because it's overused. But it's putting a...
I agree with you. I mean, because, just real quick, I agree that, like, quirky and vibe have got to be out of our lexicon.
What it is, it's a golf course that's put into a place that maybe isn't very conducive to playing golf in a specific type of way. Like, it's very good target golf, especially if you have slope. But I think pros will come out here and just be like, this is just kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, I think what I mentioned to you there that I've really thought more about is in Tom Coyne's book, he talks to Tom Doak, Double Tom. And Doak says, and again, this is just Tom Doak's take, but Doak says the most important thing for him about golf is that the course has a sense of place. And I think one of the powers I've watched recently is I just, because I'm a sicko, but I just finished No Laying Up Tourist Sauce. And you watch those places like Cairn and Ballybunion, and it's just wild. But a big thing is like, it feels like those holes are found, right? Those are dunes where they're like, the dunes are just there. They were created, thousands of years ago, and we're finding golf holes amongst the dunes. The biggest indictment to Wente to me is, rather than Wente having a sense of place, the big thing I felt all day is, a golf course shouldn't be here. Like, this isn't where a golf course should be. Again, that actually, I think for some people, a different customer base, a different consumer, could be quite appealing, right? Where it's like, for example, after the switchbacks, you go up this crazy hill, you're teeing off on number 10. So 310 yard par 4, you hit 6-iron wedge. But when you're teeing off, there's a canyon where if you were to jump, you'd die. You're dead. But you get these crazy views of just as far as the eye can see. You got this brown green juxtaposition. And also too, just for the fun of it, you're hitting your tee shot, for better or for worse, like a power line effectively. And again, it's I was thinking about would love to talk to one of the people who is building the switchback to get the carts up there to have to build that golf hole. And it's this is just...
is it worth it?
It's just... it's just weird.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it.
Well, and the other thing that he said, which just made us both like giggle, was he was saying like it feels like Greg Norman just wanted to find a place where you could walk around naked and just start like doing doing some of this stuff. There, then I'll go hit the inaugural. This is not the right accent. The right. I'll start shoveling there, and I don't know, but. I think that's the thing is like I don't want to say Wente is good or bad. I think because I have no problem lighting golf courses on fire who deserve it. I just think that like to use the analogy again, you and I want to drink whiskey and this is more vodka. I just think it's not as much for us. For people who enjoy, supreme value, don't care a ton about like conditioning other than around the greens, who are more than happy to eat like a $6 club sandwich and a Tecate. Wente just skews the opposite in every way, right? Like it makes a mean margarita, but you're going to have to ride in this cart that's yelling at you to get your cart back by 8 p.m. and it's 11 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, I think that it's an interesting, to be clear, I think everyone should play it once. I think you should go develop your own opinion. I'm not saying you shouldn't go play it. And there's certainly some fun, challenging shots. There's definitely some standout holes, and I want to kind of get your take on what your favorite, maybe least favorite holes were. But I think that we'd encourage everybody to go play out there once and have an opinion. Because I think that Travis called it a once a year golf course, and you kind of mumbled to yourself and was like, maybe it's just like once, anytime. But I've also heard a whole bunch of people who are in the DMs on Saturday who were like, yo, like love that place. So I think that it's just polarizing might be the term of like, it depends what you're into. Yeah. But Hussey, were there any holes that really stuck out to you?
Yeah. I think it's the first hole. It's boring.
You mean because you made birdie, net eagle, and won $63?
That is 100% why I'm saying that. Yep.
SCUMMY, scummy.
I will take the stroke and the skim.
Why are you leaning aggressively into the mic as you talk about
this?
Because I
don't want too many people to hear that. But number one.
Yeah, the cat is the cat's just banging on the door.
100%. Number one, straight downhill. Reminded me of the first hole at Yochadehi, except there was no free drop right, but luckily my fade did not fade too far. Kind of a boring green, and I made birdie. So I love that hole, and it's just kind of weird that all of the vineyards are OB. That's very weird to me.
And the toughest scene by far was on number 8, was a par 5. Hussey hit it OB left, I hit it OB right, and we best balled our way to a double bogey, which was just... Because, if you were to say for both me and Hussey, like, we're both guys who, the gigantic caveat, for the average golfer, our length is our strength. Like, we're guys who, if we do anything, should be tearing apart par 5s, and we just, like... I yanked a ball into the fucking, actually it wasn't even OB. I hit it up on the hill and it was stuck behind a fence.
What was your favorite?
Yeah, but what... I made triple on it, but I thought 2 was a good hole because I think that it's a good... I actually think the first 3 holes are great because it gives you a really weird juxtaposition of 1, downhill, kind of open, par 4, like you said, you get to see the vineyard. 2, it's this very, to use, the DJ Pie, what Nick always says is the really tight piece of property, where, again, the idea of using trees well, good architecture, the tree is kind of over on the left, forcing you to hit it to the right, but when you're over on the right, you're either going to lose your ball or you're going to have no angle, and then you have to hit it on this, pretty small green. And then number 3 is just kind of a really good par 3 with a lot of bunkers and this really cool kind of view. It looks like a mountain that's kind of carved out. It's one of those where 100% of people are going to pull out their phones and take a picture of that. But I think that 2 is really interesting because 1 feels really open. To your point, it actually feels like a hole where it's like you should make a par. And then it's cool, you just pound a driver and Now we need you to either hit like a 6-iron or a hybrid. So I just kind of really liked that one. And then the back, you get a little bit more of goofy golf. Like number 10 is the 310-yard par 4, just kind of weird. Then you get another downhill par 3. Then you get a really challenging par 5, which I think is a pretty stupid hole, because you hit your driver and there's not a lot of place at your driver. And then there's basically the green is up on this finger. If you hit it left, it's off the canyon. If you hit it right, it's in protected red stakes. It's just a place where you feel like a goddamn champion for making a par. And then you go to the next hole that's this like crazy downhill dog leg left. And it's just, again, it's just like a lot of, I guess the interesting part about it is it's a course that just makes you feel uncomfortable, because you're like, is it a 3-wood? Is it a driver? Is it a driving iron? You're just second guessing yourself all day, which again, very weirdly in a very different way than Metro, where it's like, you know, it all depends on the wind. This is a course where I don't think it's based on the wind. It's based off of the slope, the elevations. But yeah, but I would tell people, again, go out there, hopefully for a twilight round, load up on some beers, have your slope adjusted rangefinder, and we'd love to hear your feedback, because again, we're not telling you not to play it. It's just a course that all day I was looking at Hussey and I was like, I'm really glad we're going to record this podcast, because I feel like I need to talk about this golf course.
Yeah, I mean, while we were out there, I was like, I just don't know if I want to come back out here and play. But now that we're talking about it, with slope, I think we could actually play really well out there. Once you really know that course and like understand the quirks about it, you can actually game. So I think we should go out there, maybe not on our own dime, maybe on someone else's dime at some point, but I'm kind of open to going back out there. Yeah.
Well, I think that playing in non-tournament conditions with slope, with less pressure, that's for you, Paul Azinger. No, we're not doing that. I think it deserves another bite at the apple. And again, Travis is probably right. It's probably a once-a-year course, right? Because the other thing too is we both play enough golf and have enough golf friends that like I know people who would go there and be like, "Yo, this is sick." Yeah. Right? We're like, I feel like, again, there's people where like those same people we would take to Soul Park, and me and you were like, oh my God, look at the punch bowl, look at it, and they're like, it's a fucking like flat, like I don't get it. Like it's just, again, it's a different kind of form of kind of what you want from your golf course. So yeah, so let's do it. We'll commit to going back out there
maybe next year,
and kind of giving it another
maybe next year.
Yeah, there's no rush.
Yeah,
there's no huge rush. But anything else about Wente, Hussey?
No. There's some really...
If you have the 2 courses we just played, if you have 10 rounds, how do you break it up? How many at Metro? How many at Wente?
Sure, I'll pay for it. I
think the answer is really easy.
Yeah, I'll play Metro probably 8-9 times.
I was going to say, I think it's a 9-to-1 ratio, mainly because of cost. Yeah. And the other thing which like we should factor in, like you said, is I do think that like we talk about this sometimes is location being agnostic. For me, living in San Francisco, it was a solid hour to Wente and took me with traffic about an hour and 30 minutes home. So I mean, like, having recently, we just did a pod about going to Monterey. I mean, I spent, more than 4 hours in the car for Monterey, and it's sort of worth it because the quality of golf at Monterey, it's just hard on on a weekend to justify 2.5 hours. Like when you're talking 2.5 hours with a lot of traffic there, combined with a very expensive rate, combined with a quirky golf course, it's just not a perfect kind of cocktail, Or if it's like, yo, I can go to Rooster Run and pay $40 and it's like 35 minutes door to door. But again, that's where we're talking from our perspective here. So I think if you're in the East Bay, like our buddy Ian lives pretty close to it. I think he kind of beats up the twilight rate. Could totally see why that would be a great option, especially because with the views at twilight, I bet that's what we should do. We should go play a twilight round, because I bet twilight there is pretty magical. But again, it's kind of the caveat to people is like, it's not really about the golf, sort of. I mean, but I think if you're going to go do that, it's like we're going to get some crazy, crazy views, drink some, delightful. They had some pink lemonade hard seltzers. Like, don't judge us until you
Those
drink
are
them.
very good.
Super good.
And their
Super
one of their
good.
Chardonnays, I think, was called Morning Fog. Very nice.
Love that.
Very nice.
Very nice. So definitely go check out both these. Again, I think that we have to say, like, Metro is much more of kind of a staple, something I think you could eat every day and love it. Wente is sort of a once
It's
in a while.
splurge.
But
And well, here's my big question. Where would you rather play? Wente or Rams Hill? Taking price into account.
oh, don't do that.
You don't have to answer that now, but I think that is a tough question.
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not. All I'll say is the people at Wente were very nice to us. That's all I'm going to say there. The people at Wente acted like we wanted us there, and I'll leave it there. Ironically, as you used your Rams Hill ball marker to mark your ball, but that's. We go back to episode 5 if you want to listen to that. We're done. Rest in peace on those takes. But Mr. Hussey, it was lovely to talk to you, man. I'm excited to see you at Sharp Park, and we'll certainly do this again soon. Because hopefully, you listeners are noticing we're just trying to mix up the format sometimes. Like, love doing the pod with Big Chris, but with him in Portland, I think it sometimes makes sense to have spent 8-9 hours with Hussey, and just trying to give you guys some different voices, a different perspective. So appreciate all the support, and Hussey, excited to have you back soon, man.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Please invite me on again.
Okay. a little thirsty over there.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Again, whisper in the mic. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.